Hi everyone, welcome to Gimel. It's our third letter, and it's really, we have Aleph, who's the Aluf Ha'olam, and then we have Bet, that's the Bria, that's us. So we have the Aluf Ha'olam and us, the creator, the created. Here they are, and now we have Gimel. Gimel is the giving, the Gemilah, the Gemilut Chasadim, the giving from one to the other. We have the relationship between the creator and the created. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Gimel is for giving. And we can see that the root of Gimel, Gimel, Mem, Lamed, we see it in many different words having to do with giving, but it's a particular kind of giving. It's giving goodness. It's giving the exact right amount of goodness so that the other one can prosper. And we see that depending on the vowels, it can be the Gomel, who's the one that gives. It can be the Gemul, the one who receives. It can be Gemila, which is the giving of. But it always has to do with this giving relationship. And not only, notice that I said in the beginning, it's giving the right kind of goodness. So it's giving enough to ripen, to bring to fruition, it's giving exactly the right amount, because we know that you can give and it may be too much. Maybe the receiver isn't open for the giving. It may be giving too much. It may be giving the right kind of giving, but at the wrong time or the wrong place. So this giving also means it's giving and it's also holding back. And we see that the first time that the root gamal, gimel mem lamed, is used is in Bereshit, where it says v'yigdal hayeled v'yigamel, and the child grew and was weaned. So the first time we see it, it's actually in that kind of holding back. The gemul is someone who has been nourished completely and perfectly, with exactly the right kind, the right amount of giving. The root, Gimel Mem Lamed, is, everyone is familiar with this, is also Gamal, camel. You can see here the similarities between camel and Gamal. And not only, if you look at the way the Gimel looks, not only is the Gimel, does it resemble the head, neck, and chest of a camel, but also this concept of giving enough to sustain, enough to nourish. The camel doesn't need to drink constantly. It takes its nourishment with it. It's independent. Just like a weaned child can go for, it doesn't have to be nursing constantly. A weaned child gets its food from different sources independently, not connected to his mother's milk. So Gimel is about giving, whether it's internally to the oneself, like the camel, or externally to others. And it's also about the opposite, holding back when it's not appropriate anymore to keep giving. God, of course, is the ultimate Gomel Chasadim Tovim. God is the ultimate in giving goodness, because he knows exactly what we need and exactly what is the right amount at the right time, and so forth. I mean, he knows better than we do what we get, what's good for us. And that brings up another aspect of Gimel, that it's defined as rewards. God gives us our just rewards. In other words, based on on what our actions have been, God will give us the the consequences of those actions. They may be sweet and feel good, and we like those, and they feel like rewards. Or these consequences could be educational, how shall I call it? Educational experiences, educational consequences of our actions. In other words, if we're going down the right path, he gives us these feel-good things. Yes, go, this is it. Full speed ahead. And if we've chosen wrong in a certain situation, he will bring us consequences that will make us sit back and say, wait a minute, maybe this is really not where I want to be going with this. Maybe this is, and we can reflect on our actions, and we can choose to respond differently the next time. We can choose to realign ourselves with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. These are the experiences that don't feel so good. And we typically call these rewards punishment because that's what it feels like. But it's really God's way of stopping us, telling us to introspect, and then move forward based on that introspection. So whatever they are, especially these kinds of learning experiences push us to stretch. They push us past our previous limitations, and they encourage us to grow, to expand our vessel so it can hold more light. And that is actually the first time that the Gimel appears in the Torah. It's in the word Gdolim. And this is on the fourth day of creation, when God created the two great lights, Shnei HaMa'orot HaGdolim. And as Rav Hirsch says, Gadol means being great, expanding, growing, being important. Greatness is the first time that the Gimel appears. So we can kind of see that this is about giving to enable us to become greater. That's what the Gimel is about. God is giving us his goodness that we may or may not feel is goodness, but we know is goodness, so that we will grow greater. That's the idea of Gimel. And extending that, growing greater often means that we become a giver ourselves. Especially for us, we are the consummate receivers. We are the receivers of God's light. And when we as receivers can turn and learn to become givers, then we have truly attained greatness. So now I want to look at the structure of the Gimel. You can see that it's actually made of two letters, a Zayin and a Yud. And its shape resembles not only a camel, but also it as okay. Rav Ginsburg says.
I don't see the camel.
You don't see the camel?
I don't see
so
the camel.
You can see it more in this Gimel, I think, the Gimel in a different font. But the idea is this is its head with a crown on it, and this is his chest, this is his neck. That's the idea, okay. The concept. But it really, as Rav...
I'm not an artist, what can I say?
As Rav Ginsburg says, it really resembles a person running forward with his legs stretched out. And he says, what Rav Ginsburg says, and this is really interesting, that the Gimel is running towards the Daled. Daled, we'll see it next week, is about Dal, is about Dalim, is about the poor ones. So Gimel is chasing after the Daled to give his Yud, to give the Yud that's we see as the Gimel's foot. And then the next letter, look at the next letter, is a Hey. And we can see the Hey is comprised of the Daled and the Yud. And that is the complete, we'll see when we get to Hey what that's about. But very interesting. So Gimel is giving the infinite light that is the Yud to the poor one, the Daled, and so at transforming the Daled into the Hey. The Hey has to do with this world. It has to do with tshuva. It has to do with expression, but we'll get there. Also, I just want to mention one of the Meforshim say that Gimel looks like a gutter pipe that's coming down into the world, from the roof, from the heavens. It's pouring down Hashem's goodness into the world. God is called the Gomel Chasadim Tovim, the giver of good, loving kindness. And it's a particular kind of giving. It's not a giving of tzedakah. It's not gemilut tzedakah. It's gemilut chasadim. Tzedakah has to do with justice and righteousness. It's not about that. Gemilut chasadim is about giving unconditional loving kindness. It's unconditional giving. Just like a baby. Babies haven't done anything to earn our love. There's nothing reciprocal in this. But we love our babies just because they are. It's just that unconditional loving. And that's how Kodesh Baruch Hu is with us. He loves us unconditionally. We see that in the story about Adam and Chava, when God put them in this magnificent, magnificent world of green, and everything they needed was there. And what did they do? He had forbidden them from eating one tree. All the other trees they could have, one tree, don't eat. And that's what they did. Obviously, we all know the story. They ate from that tree, and then when the world changed around them and they realized what they had done, they hid, and God said, "Where are you? And what did you do?" And what did they do? They blamed each other. Adam said, "Well, the woman you gave me, the woman, she gave it to me and I ate." And the woman said, "It was the snake, he deceived me." So everyone was passing the buck. So God looked at his creations, and he loved them. He loved us. And so he saw that we were embarrassed, we were ashamed of our nakedness. And we'll go into that later, exactly what this was about. But he gave them clothes. And God giving them clothes was the first act of Gemilut Chasadim, undeserved, unconditional giving of loving kindness, of chesed. The clothing may have been God's first act of loving kindness, but it wasn't his last. He consistently and constantly is giving us everything we need, including this. He gives people, he gives us life, even when we use that life energy to go against him, to do things that he's forbidden us to do. When we don't believe in God, he still gives us he still gives us the life energy to do as we choose, to preserve our free will. Always hoping, he has faith in us. We say Moda'ani every morning. He has faith in us that we will return to him, that we will come back to him, that we will use our free choice for choosing to align ourselves with his will. So that's the structure. Gimel embodies the energy of the number 3. And 3 is about the synthesis of opposites. Exactly like we have the Aleph and the Bet, it's the synthesis between us. It's the relationship. It's the connection. It's the golden mean stretching between two extremes. It's the dynamic. It's the dynamic that bridges two different elements. It's about harmony. It's about the creativity that vibrates between two. When you have a chord of just two that you're playing, if you add a third one, it adds so much richness and so much depth and to that chord that you're playing. We also know that it adds permanence and stability. A three-ply chord is not quickly broken. That's from Kohelet, I believe. Yes, Kohelet.
So physically it's stability, because if you have a table with 4 legs, then one
Right,
is not
exactly.
exactly the same height, it wouldn't be stable, but with 3, it would be stable.
Exactly. A 3,
Okay.
exactly, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Threeness is about stability. And we know that when you do an action, a mitzvah, 3 times, it establishes it. This is kavua. This has permanence now. So we also see that in the world of Torah, there are many 3s. Can you think of any of them? Shlosha Avot, good. Anyone else?
Oh,
The Shlosha Avot, the 3 fathers,
And
the
the 3
patriarchs.
legs that the world stands on?
Good. Torah, Avodah, Gemilut Chasadim, right. And Gimel, Gemilut Chasadim, is actually even one of them. So that's good.
And when you do Shalom Aleichem, you do 3 times, because you have to do it 3 times in order for the angels to hear you and come down.
Ah,
Bring
very
the veil.
nice. Very nice. Also, there's the 3 Kohanim, Levi'im, Yisraelim. There's in Tanakh, there's Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. There's so many. Our 3 daily tefillot, Shachrit, Mincha, Ma'ariv. 3 partners create a human being. The mother, the father, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's many. We could 3 that are one: the Holy One, the Torah, and the nation of Israel. That's from, I believe, the Zohar. So 3 is a real. It's stable. It's talking about relationship, permanence. It's here. It solidifies. And when we look at it, like the 3-legged stool or chair that Yael was talking about, it's that is the Aleph, Bet, and Gimel. This is the tripod of the Aleph, Bet. The Creator, the created, and our relationship forever, our eternal relationship. Okay, so the root of Gimel Mem Lamed, is also in Aramaic, it's Gamla, it's bridge. So this again reinforces that idea of connection. Gemilut Chesed creates a bridge of love connecting the giver to the receiver. So we've talked a little bit about how parents are also a Gomel Chesed to their children. That's who we are and what we do. And we teach our child, we give to them, but we give to them enough so that they can become independent, free-thinking, freestanding individuals in the world. So we give and we also hold back. And that's a big thing. What can I do to help this child grow and develop himself so that he can develop his potential and learn how to navigate in the world on his own? That's like such a big part of our work as parents. How can we help the child grow into an independent yet giving, loving human being? So we know that God is the ultimate Gomel. He's constantly giving us energy, he's giving us love, he's giving us light, he's giving us goodness. But what happens when our vessel is not able to hold all the light that he's giving us? So if you think of, like, sometimes we're constricted. Sometimes we're not interested. Sometimes we there's other things we need to do, or we're preoccupied with other things, or we have, instead of this good light that he wants to give us, that he's giving us, maybe we've filled up ourselves with other things, other ideas, other values, other images. So just like if you have a bowl that you want to fill with water, but there's all sorts of rocks and sticks and different things in the bowl, you can't pour much water into the bowl. So first you have to take out all of this stuff that's in the bowl, and then you can fill it with water. So in our own lives, it's important to look, what are the things that are junking up my vessel that I can take out in order to have the space to fill with light? What are those things? And that's kind of, you've heard, we all know, sur me'ra ve'aseh tov, turn from evil and do good. This is basically the turn from evil aspect of it, where we are taking out the stuff that does not align with God's will and with our tselem elokim. We have this tselem elokim. What aligns with that tselem elokim? Everything else, let me take out. And then ve'aseh tov. And this, I like to think of, when you make something with pottery, in pottery, where you make something in clay, and sometimes the walls are really thick, because especially when you're starting out, you're not so good. So you have these thick vessels, thick earthen walls. And then, so you have that. And then on the other side, you have a very fine Limoges tea cup. So, and let's say they're the same size on the outside, but you can fill the Limoges teacup with a lot more tea than you can fill this thick earthenware cup that you made, just because the wall is thick. So that has to do with aseh tov. That has to do with refining ourselves. How do I, not only do I take out the junk, but how do I work on myself to attune to my tselem elokim? What are the things that I am doing to make myself into a shining light?
Can you just, again, sorry to remind me, how we translating Tselem?
Tselem comes from the word sel, which is shadow, shade, and it has to do with us being a shadow of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Hashem took out the infinity, the perfection, the eternity, and that's us. We are those creations. So we're all created with the potential of holding all the goodness that is our birthright. But usually the vessels we start out with, always the vessels we start out with, are small. We're babies. We're constricted. We're physically small. Our consciousness has not matured enough to be able to hold all the light that Hashem wants to give us. So during the course of our lives, Hashem gives us experiences and situations designed to help us grow, designed to help us expand our vessel, to mature, to ripen our vessel, so that we can become that vessel to hold this light. So he sends us, we need to learn, because we need to know what is important to Hashem and what is this Tselem Elokim and who am I at my core. And then he gives us the situations that can turn this theoretical knowledge into actual, so that we can actualize these things. And this happens when we meet, a difficult neighbor or a gossipy friend, or even the tempting chocolate cake on Shabbos, where we took one piece, but the second piece would be really good too. Or even, and this is a real life situation that happened, if we buy a secondhand desk from Craigslist, and when we get it home and open it up, we find $98,000 hidden in the back.
Yeah, that hasn't happened to me yet.
It did happen, yes, it did. And the man that bought it, the rabbi that bought it, immediately called the owner and said, I know you sold me a desk, I know you didn't sell me, $98,000.
Well, you should be calling the police. What are you doing?
So, but these are the tests. These are the experiences. Like Abraham had 10 tests, and they were so he could actualize the potential that was within him. With each test, he expanded. He actualized. He brought into this world more of the potential that he was born with.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I was thinking about, I'm hearing about the test that you're describing now, and then at the beginning, you were also talking about like the rewards and the punishments for what we do, and trying to kind of reconcile the two, because like when tests come up in our lives, they usually don't feel great, right? Like it's a test.
Yeah, right.
It's a challenge. It's something that we kind of run up against and we have to make a decision about, and it's uncomfortable. But it's not a punishment. It's, as you're saying, it's like for us to expand and grow. So I think I'm having trouble with the reward and punishment. Like it's
So
too black
forget
and
punishment. I just said that's sometimes how people talk about it. I don't, even with my kids, I never think of it, I think of them as educational consequences. This is what you need in order to grow. I know you're great. Hashem is saying to us, I know you're great. You have so much greatness within you. I am giving you this so that you can actualize that, so you can know it, so you can expand into who you are. And it's not easy, and it is challenging, and sometimes it's really painful. But it's so that we can grow. That's always the reason.
Right, but it's not necessarily a sign that like we're on the wrong track. It's
Well,
right?
sometimes it can be. It's not so clear. Sometimes it can be, and sometimes just for us to stop and think about just that introspection about what we've done, is there another way? Could I have handled this differently? Just that is part of the process. So it's not like a recipe. It's about our free will. Ultimately, it all comes down to our free will and how do we actualize it. There's one of my teachers, Sari Yehudit Schneider, had something that she always said, and it makes so much sense. She said, ask yourself, what is the most spiritually productive thing I can do in this moment? Because we only have this moment. And so to ask yourself, what is the most spiritually productive thing I can do right now, is a way of kind of using where we are in order to grow. And if that means introspecting and thinking about the past and tshuva, and so that's the way. Or if it means choosing to go ahead, or it's kind of it's not clear.
Right. Okay, well, that's what I wanted to ask
Yeah.
about, because at the beginning it sounded like very black and white what you were saying. Like if we feel kind of like we're receiving rewards that feel good, it means we're doing what we should be doing, and if we're receiving something that doesn't feel good, then it means we have to correct. And I was feeling like in my own life, I don't think it's that clear.
Yeah, no,
so
it's not
there's
clear.
some-
It's not
And
clear.
sometimes when you do things and if Hashem is giving us like, okay, this is not the right flow, or this flow is, it's not like always clear, because there are many thoughts sometimes.
There are many what?
Many yot. that if you do something good, then the other forces try to stop you. So then it's another aspect that one has to understand. Is this really from Hashem or not? No? Can be
And it
confusing.
gets darker and foggier. I think we really have to say, Hashem, I really want to do your will. I really want to be aligned with you, with my Tzelem Elokim, and with you. Please guide me. I think that's so important because it's not clear. Okay, so what I do want to say is that Hashem has faith in us. Mode'ani lefanecha melachai shechazarta binishmati b'chemla rabba emunasecha. How great is your faith in me? He gives us life every morning because he believes in us. He believes we can do it. He believes that we can grow and change and expand and stretch. And if we don't get it the first time, we get a challenging situation, you'll know that he'll give it to us again. We'll get it back again in another shape or form. And if we don't get it in this lifetime, there's the next one.
Oh.
And that we're gonna get to in a minute. But I do want to add one more thing that I forgot to say, that Hashem has two ways that he gets us to grow. We've got the carrot and we've got the stick. In Tehillim 23, it says, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. They guide me along the right path. And the rod, of course, is like an ox drover who has his rod and taps him, the ox here, taps him there. And he also has the staff that we can walk. He supports us. He helps us. But it's very interesting that because it feels like living in this world, exactly as Sarah was saying, that it feels like the ways that get us to grow the most are the challenging things. That it's not really the carrot that helps us so much. And I want to say that we see that in Midrash Rabbah, in Bereshit, where it says that every living creation has an angel that connects it to the heavenly spheres. And even Kol Esev ve'esev, every blade of grass has an angel that strikes it and says, grow. And it's interesting that the word that's used is makeh. Makeh is the same as the makot in Mitzrayim, not fun things. So this angel strikes the grass to grow. So we can see that the grass is not compassionately spoken to or gently whispered to or encouraged, but it's struck. And that's really what happens in life. We are struck by this challenge or that challenge, and that's how we grow. So that brings up another Gimel word, which is Gilgul Hanefesh. Gilgul. And notice, Gilgul, the root is Gimel Lamed. Gimel Lamed, Gimel Lamed. Gimel is about giving goodness to grow to greatness, and Lamed is about learning. So we are learning through this process how to become greater. The process of Gilgul Hanefesh allows souls to come back into the world to work on specific issues and previously unrefined character traits. It takes the rewards, the learning opportunities that Hashem gives us in one lifetime. It takes us beyond the boundaries of that lifetime into another lifetime. But interestingly, unlike a non-Jewish perspective on reincarnation, which says that an entire soul comes back. So we know that there are 5 levels of the soul. And each level of these 5 levels, each of these 5 levels has also different parts to it. There's there's nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechida. And within nefesh, there is the ruach of nefesh and the neshama of nefesh. So there's many different parts to each soul. So in a particular lifetime, if, let's say, a person actualizes a particular level of a soul, then that stays with that person forever. In other words, when that person comes back after Tchiyat HaMetim, after resurrection of the dead, the soul, the parts of the soul that person in that body actualized belonged with that body forever. So when we actualize, let's say we're by nature timid, or, and we chicken out, when we confront a scary situation. If we in this lifetime actualize courage, if we learn how to be courageous, even when there's a difficult situation, then that will stay with this body in the world to come. But the parts of us that we don't actualize, that we don't bring out, that we don't bring from potential to actual in this lifetime, will not stay with us. They will go on to be actualized in another lifetime, in another body, in another situation. We'll talk about this more as we go through the letters. It's a very interesting concept, but I remember always asking, but what about, Tchiyas HaMesim, and the body is going to come back, but there's so many bodies and souls, and how do they get matched up? If we actualize an aspect of our soul, that will come back with this person. That's Chava, Chava Ashkenazi Bloom, Bat Shlomo, and Yocheved Elka. That is who, if I actualize, my courage, let's say, that will come back with me. So, and this is from the Ari in Sefer HaGilgulim. The souls that have been actualized, the soul parts that have been actualized after 120 years, the body is buried, the soul goes on to the world to come, that soul will not come back in reincarnation. There is a process called ibur, which is impregnation, where a soul can come back to help another soul in this world to go through a challenge or whatever it might be, just for a specific time, but it's only to help this soul in a particular time and place. So when you think of it, this is how, like, I have this image of, like, me. I could have the nefesh from someone who lived 200 years ago, and I could have the ruach from, someone 100 years ago, and I could have, I can have pieces of souls that are now mine, that they didn't actualize, but they're for me to actualize. And each one of us can have, like, I think of our souls are like this patchwork quilt of soul pieces from Am Yisrael. From Am Yisrael. And when we think of it, like, Am Yisrael is one. We are one soul. We are one soul through time and space and history. We're one. And this concept of Gilgul HaNefesh really brings support to that.
Is this written in Sefer Gilgulim, or is that your concept that different lifetimes, people are in 5 different levels. of
No,
soul.
that's
It's
Sefer
in the
Gilgalim.
Sefer,
Mhm. So now I just want to kind of bring things together, that our souls are like camels. They're like gemalim. A gamal, before he goes on a journey, on a long journey through the desert, he fills up with food and water, enough to sustain him through the desert. And then he'll come to an oasis, he'll drink, it'll replenish him, and he'll continue on. And our souls, before we come down into this world, we fill up with wisdom, we fill up with godly light, we are so full, like these little babies, they are so filled with godly light. They don't have the vessels that can really express that light yet, but you can see it in their eyes, right? You can see it in their eyes. But so light, these souls come down filled with light, and she's meant to survive here based on this light. And she also the soul has green oases that she can fill up with. She has Torah shiurim. She has inspiration. She has, and when our soul gets to a place where we can really feel this, and when we say, yes, this is really feeding my neshama, we drink deeply and we bring that into our soul, and that can sustain us through all of the physicalities of the world that we need to go through, this body that we need to take care of, that we need to feed, and our families, and all of the things that we need to do in the world, this spiritual light can sustain us. So the question is, can we become like the gamal, like the gomel? Can we learn to be a gomel of chesed in the world and bring geula? And I just want to look at the word geula. If we transform the root of Gimel, Gimel Mem Lamed, and Gimel Aleph Lamed, Mem, we'll see, Mem has to do with Mayim and the Homer of reality. When we can transform the Mem of Gimel into the Aleph of the Aluf's vision of loving relationship, we will have geula. We will have geula when we can bring down, and there's the Vav in geula, when we can bring down the Yud in Gimel. We take that Yud of infinite wisdom and we can bring it down through the Vav into creating the Aleph of Hashem's vision. We will be redeemed. That will be redemption. And so I want to leave you with just this concept of giving goodness in the world, becoming the Gomel to bring Geula.